What's happening, folks? Back with another reaction, back with some more Propagandhi, and this is a request from Chris, great friend of the channel, and indeed a friend of the channel that goes back to the final days of my old channel when I first began reacting to punk rock. But yeah, we're back with Propagandhi after a while because Ryan wanted to see a reaction to Note to Self from the Failed States album, 2012. I feel like this is the Propagandhi album that I have ingrained in my brain the least. I've certainly heard it. I've spent time listening to some of the songs. In particular, I played it in my car in full at different points over the last decade plus. But regardless, compared to their other albums, including the more recent Victory Lap, I just think I've probably listened to this one the least. Nevertheless, this is the opening track, Note to Self, and in that regard, I probably remember it and know it better than some of the others. So yeah, as the title indicates, this is a self-reflective and critical and perhaps prescriptive comment. Now, ultimately, if you had just given me the lyrics to this and said, okay, this is a Propagandhi song, but without, and indeed, I think it says Note to Self in the lyrics, but if you hadn't indicated that this was a self-reflective set of lyrics, I think by reading it I would be able to figure out that okay, so this is Propagandhi. Well, they've talked about at different points how, look, they enjoy hockey, they grew up, playing it and watching it, but as adults they've come to, have severe misgivings about the corporatization of the professional game and the way it gets infused with seemingly unrelated cultural elements that are, again, very, seemingly adjacent to what the actual sport is about. So yeah, ultimately I am aware that on some level they enjoy hockey, even though they have misgivings about, the way that sports are conducted in the world. If you know their albums and the liner notes, and if you have the Where Quantity is Number One or Job Number One, unreleased or demo album or compilation, there's audio recordings in that, including somewhere they're in the tour van and, a couple of them are very drunk and passing out, they're sleeping and so on. So it's clear that over the years they've been fond of booze, and ultimately, they support other bands and they've toured with other bands and so on. So the whole point is, a lot of the lyrics in this fit so much with other Propagandhi songs, and indeed could be written at any point in their career, even if the sonics, I think, are indicative of a band much more, let's say, artistic and mature in their sound compared to How to Clean Everything, or even to a lesser extent, Less Talk More Rock. Although, again, I'll always love those albums, and they're very nostalgic and I think still very good, even if, again, you can hear the evolution. I think for me, Today's Empires, Tomorrow's Ashes is the real turning point with their sound and beginning to, develop into a more sophisticated punk rock sound, and one infused with some metal elements. In any case, yeah, lyrically, a lot of the lyrics could fit anywhere in their career. They're about, the way that, if you try to change the system from the inside, nothing really happens, and, you're going to be frustrated and you're going to end up turning toward, more selfish things. And indeed, it gets to a point where it says, all that's left of you, or it's bands, sports, and booze, that's all that's left of you, or that's all that you are that now, or something to that effect. And it's, again, if I had read that without knowing the name of the song, or name of the song, I'd be like, oh, this has to be them, looking in the mirror and penning a critical and prescriptive note. So yeah, ultimately, I think it's very well written, and if you know the band, if you know what Chris has talked about in interviews and so on, and Jordan, the other guys in the group, then you would know that this is very much them saying, perhaps would it be more effective if we were even more activists, and instead of touring and trying to write songs about changing things, perhaps we need to rise. And indeed, I think the final line of the song is rise. So ultimately, it's cool. It's, by this point, 2012, I forget exactly how much older than me they are. I think it's like a half decade, 6-7 years, something like that. So at that point they would have been late 30s, moving into middle age, what I'm in now. and would have been, a sort of a moment of self-reflection that, like, we talk about these themes and these motifs, and we try to support them, and they have engaged in activism, but you can feel the, like, are we really making a difference, or is this, are we just kind of comforting ourselves with the notion that voting for certain people seemingly more reasonable than other people will effectively, over time, cause gradual change, that things get more reasonable and fair? And, the song takes a pessimistic note on that, but then prescribes the, like, well, no, we have to actually stand up and, create something new, because this isn't working. So I'll stop babbling. Let's listen to it. This is Propagandhi, Note to Self, from the 2012 album Failed States. So that was my experience hearing that tune for the first time was like, wow, I'm kind of really keyed in on the lyrics, and it has this slower syncopated style, and it gets to that part where he's saying, that's all that's left of you is, again, like bands and sports and booze. And I'm sort of like really keyed in, and then it's like, the right before your eyes or whatever the lead in to the line, rise, and then it launches, and I was like, oh my god, like it basically, I was like, wow, this is a really, a really sonically different Propagandhi, and it got to that part, and it was like, okay, like it's still the Propagandhi I know, just up to that point, I was like, really fascinated by the sound. So I like the way it unleashes that attempt to reanimate a rebellious sentiment at the end with the sort of rocking punk sonics, whereas up to that point it's a bit more brooding, it's a bit more, again, sort of like syncopated, like in two minds. And again, I love the idea of a self-reflective and self-critical song. To always be pointing the finger and criticizing other things, it's easier. It's definitely something that's easier to do, because pointing out problems, if you look hard enough, there's a lot to find. And again, if you have like attitudes and values that are perhaps completely different from, if not overtly opposite to, a larger swath of society and culture, then you're going to see problems in a lot of places. But to look in the mirror and to say, okay, like, is what I'm doing and saying, does it have meaning? Am I living up to my own, professed attitudes and so on? That takes, I think, a little more perception and bravery. So I like the idea of, doing that in art, and, not just observing the world, but observing one's own, actions and behaviors. So once again, shout out to Propagandhi, shout out to Ryan for suggesting this one, and just for being a friend of the channel for a long time. Do let me know any other Propagandhi tunes I haven't reacted to. I mean, I've reacted to a number of their tunes across the albums, but even then, I would say it's probably not even half, like, of their overall catalog. Still many, many to go. So let me know if there's one you want to hear, and I will see you next time. Peace.